Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. By the light in the beautiful sea, I choose to be happy. You and I, we're like diamonds in the sky. You're a shooting star I see, a vision of ecstasy. Will you hold me? I'm alive. We're like diamonds in the sky. I knew that we'd become one right away. Oh, right away. At first sight, I felt the energy of sun rays. I saw the light inside the light. Tonight, you and I were beautiful like diamonds in the sky. I too so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. We're beautiful diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Palms rise to the universe as we moonshine and Maalik. Feel the warmth, we'll never die. We're like diamonds in the sky. You're a shooting star I see, a vision of ecstasy. When you hold me, I'm alive. We're like diamonds in the sky. At first sight, I felt the energy of sun rays. I saw the light inside your eyes. Tonight, you and I, we're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Tonight, so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Yeah, we're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Oh, yeah. Tonight, we're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. I too so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky.
Yes,
Shine bright like a
indeed.
diamond.
This particular song is painful. I have to say that. And it make me, and I know Brother Harold, want to call for backup. We call on Boise, God rest his soul. We call on Jose. And all of those producers that was here this time 14 years ago when we had the same condition in the streets of Chicago. Every year, this time of year, we have the same slaughter. But we have to wait for our diamonds to get in the sky because these politicians are so sorry that they can't come up with a solution. With people like me and Harold and Boise when he was here, and Brother Harry Bassett, who made his transition today. These are people that's moving on. Our diamonds going to the sky before they could realize the riches here in the city of Chicago. And we're going to have church on that tonight. But before we do, you see, I want you all to understand something here. This is a live, interactive opportunity for you to call us. It's been waiting for about 2 years now. And I know y'all ain't used to it being from 6 to 7 on a Friday night, but it's all right. Because we're going to get back next month to a 10 in the morning, or 10:30. So just be patient. CAN TV has worked with the producers, and we have, as a co-host producer with us tonight, Reverend Wilson Coleman, who will just give a few words. You heard me say Reverend, right? So she's going to just give y'all a little bit of that spirit, because the producers are very thankful. And we are honored to have the first show here in this new studio on the producers' behalf, Reverend Wilson Coleman.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Wilson Coleman, Reverend Dr. Stephanie Wilson
Yes, ma'am.
Coleman, and this is a special evening for us. This is the first live producer show. Now, they've done some things on CAN TV Live, but this is the first live producer show. So we want to thank a few people before we start. We want to thank Jim McVeigh, who is Executive Director of CAN TV, all of the other producers and studio staff and cameramen who help support this effort for us. We make it look easy, but there's a lot going on in the background. We want to thank our community partners, our engineers, our nonprofit service, our production services, where Terrence Morris is the actual, he's the manager there. Cable casting, Leslie Johnson, who's the manager there, and the training manager and the ITS department, Tommy Heffron. For it's those people who made it possible for us to get the training we needed to come into this studio tonight. We promise you, as always, to have shows that are filled with information that you can use that will help move you to not only change your lives, but to change the lives of all who hear our voices, not only in the city of Chicago, because I believe that if we change one person, then you will change one, and they will change one, and then we will reach the entire city of Chicago. And then when we have a show, we won't have to talk about the crime or the politician. We won't have to talk about the diamonds that are lost. For we are here to encourage you all to live your dreams here while you're on this side of the earth and not take them with you. So thank you for joining us. There is a call-in number that will appear at the bottom of the show, area code 312-738-1845. For those of you all who haven't been to a live show for 2 years, that's still the same phone number. So you should have that memorized. So please call in, be an active participant in this show, and especially tonight's show, where we talk about ways that we can solve some of the issues that we face day to day as people. And you may think it only affects you, but if it affects us, it affects everyone. So thank you for joining us.
And thank you, Dr. Wilson Coleman. Now, y'all know I'm sort of raw. You know, hey, wasn't that nice?
Oh, yeah. It's nice.
Here I am, sort of rough and ready. See how smooth that was? I never would have thought about doing all that. See, that's why we're going to get to LeBron James directly, because he's one of the topics we're going to talk about, but he talked about the value and the beauty of the colored woman. You know, I'm going to work that colored woman piece because, you know, woo-woo, it's a serious matter. But just think, had not Dr. Reverend Wilson Coleman been here, it would have just had the flavor of two men. But the flavor she brought made you all, I'm sure, feel that it was smoother than if I would have brought it, because I've been ready to go straight to the rough. But it's good to have the softer. Now, we're going to open with a clip. Just open with the clip.
You say that he cares more about the illegal immigrants that are in the city than the African Americans.
I said exactly that. He cares more about non-citizens, African Americans. We're citizens, and our ancestors built this country.
He got some good things, but I think he don't step up and come to the people where the crime is. You know what I'm saying? The crime.
We put him in office. African Americans made the difference in the last mayoral election. It's just ruthless for him to just write us off.
We have to make sure that President Trump recognized that not everyone believes that Chicago is a Trump-free zone. If he's serious about helping the people in Chicago, especially on the west side of Chicago, I accept his help.
This mayor does not have a vision that includes us. He has locked us out even though we put him in office.
Chicago marks its 300th homicide of the year. Planners hope to highlight the city's inattention to the needs of its low-income residents and the gun violence they feel is a byproduct of that neglect.
Do you think Mayor Rahm Emanuel has failed Chicago?
Well, Ron Emanuel, first of all, is a con man. His whole job is to keep black folks divided.
No, he doesn't care about anybody but the people in his neighborhood and his family.
City's in financial calamity. You know, the organization in the city of Chicago is just complete disarray. No matter which angle you want to audit or look at, Chicago is a complete mess.
There would be more calls for his resignation if, number one, he didn't have a lot of friends in high places. President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the governor of Illinois, even though he's a Republican who's a personal friend. All three of those people, if any of them called for his resignation, he'd be out. Every other city seems to be in, you know, as much as we're having these problems, every other city's police department doesn't seem to have the same problems as Chicago.
This mayor has been very effective in doing what's politically expedient for him. After the Laquan McDonald police cover-up was revealed, he used the taxpayers' dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars he used to put together a blue panel, a blue ribbon panel to go out and do a national search. They vetted candidates from all over the country. They came back with 3 proven reformers. He threw their names out. He suspended the rules in city council and picked a guy that he knew and he felt comfortable with. Illegitimacy.
And I think part of it issued with what Rev just stated, illegitimacy. You know, man, I don't want to be political, but Rahm Emanuel has had a honeymoon for almost 8 years. And after the last election, I thought he would have done better. When he came into office, we had just come out of a situation. Me and Brother Harold Davis and boys and others, we worked and we did things, and President Obama and Holder came over with $90 million to come here and try to help deal with this same situation. And then the politicians gave the $90 million to $60 million. The other 30, I guess they just did something else with it. The Chicago Public Schools, and they called it Safe Passage. It was supposed to be community watch, where people that had the ability to work with those in the community that might have been causing a lot of this was actually involved. But instead, the politicians gave the CPS and made it a little plum for them. But the community is still experiencing the same problems we had when he came into office. And the only people benefit from that is the police. But the last I heard, not one crime has been solved out of the 74 situations over the weekend. So the only people that are going to make money, the only people that benefit from that are these sorry, young, rookie white boys and girls in our communities riding around in air-conditioned vehicles making overtime, and when they have not done their jobs during their regular time. What? I can't tell Mr. Davis I want some overtime. He's going to say, dude, are you crazy? I don't have the results from the regular time. But yet we paying the police to be out there and they can't solve the crime. And then Rahm Emanuel, Lord, don't let me do this. But he ain't quite a white man. Boy, I'm going to hold my tongue. He's a minority. Right now, he's playing like he's a white man. But in a minute, because Ronna called for it today, they want him out. They say it's time to go. Trump said it's time to go. The governor of Illinois said it's time to go. And I hope the voters remember to say, dude, it's time to go. Now, I like him, but he don't like us. Harold, Mr. Davis, help me understand. Why is it that these same Negro elected politicians every year want to go come together and ask for some more money when Obama gave Chicago $90 million and the problem still exists? that existed when Rahm Emanuel got in office. If I was the government, I wouldn't give them another half a penny. Why? Because all they do is fatten their own coffers, and the people continue going to the graveyard. Help me out, Brother Harold.
Well, I think the major problem is that we're operating from a position of weakness and powerlessness. Power is the ability to fix things that are wrong. Power is the ability to change things. We have absolutely no power to change anything because we don't own anything. And part of the problem that I see is that when somebody has 100% of their money, 99% of your money, and they come in your community and you don't own anything. And so when the violence strikes, then the violence becomes a catalyst that keeps that kind of power in power because we're focusing solely on the violence. And so when the Wall Street Journal just revealed a report that the Navy has been here for 4 years with a training program for doctors, medics, and corpsmen in the Navy. And it says that now they have extended it. It's no longer a pilot program, it's a program where they're training doctors, medics, and corpsmen in the Navy, that they're saying that Chicago has become the best training center in the world because of the penetrating gunshots that young victims are coming into the county, into Stroger Hospital with, are the same penetrating gunshots that are used in those weapons, automatic weapons that are used overseas in wars. Our young people are using them. And so they said that this is the best training facility in the world for penetrating gunshots right here in Chicago. The normal trauma rate for hospitals around the country is 1% to 3%. In Stroger's upwards of 35% to 40%. And so when you look at, they allegedly closed Stroger Hospital down last Sunday at 3 o'clock in the morning, it just wasn't because of gunshot wounds. It was 120 people from Lollapalooza that had drug overdoses, that had been drinking, that were dehydrated, and so they didn't talk about that. But the fact of the matter is that we didn't know that the training of the naval base from the Department of Defense, which has a $700 billion budget, that just put another $26 billion in programs like Stroger Hospital in terms of teaching these medics, these doctors, these corpsmen in the Navy how to deal with penetrating gunshot wounds. And the head of the program said that no longer will the training, or this training will be, when they go overseas and deal with these wars, they will already have the training on how to deal with these penetrating gunshot wounds because they're getting the training right here at Stroger.
Off of our diamonds,
in the rough,
that's going to the sky.
To the sky.
Don't make no sense. But Dr. Reverend Wilson Coleman, give us your take.
Well, Harold's right. When you don't own anything, it's difficult to find. It's difficult to come from a position of power. And it's difficult to find power. That's when we really have to focus on where we can make a change. So we can make a change on our actions and what we do. We can make a change, and maybe everyone says to me, well, what do we do to help the kids? I say, well, help the kids in your own family. Try with kids you know, as opposed to trying to grab somebody off the street you don't know. Try with the children you know. Try with your nieces, your nephews, your stepchildren, and help them learn what they need to learn. Help them be responsible. Teach them the manners and protocol that they need. Help them learn to believe in themselves and to believe that they count. I think in the midst of all of this, our people have forgotten that they count. Because the biggest resources, you wouldn't have rich people without people who consume goods and services, and poor people consume a lot of goods and services. So we are important. So we need to look at where we spend our money, who we support. All too often, we don't support people who look like us. Right. We take our money outside of African American community. And when you do that, it hurts us because we have to get to a point to where our dollar is turning over in our community as many times as possible. So we complain if we do business with a black merchant that they're don't give us customer service. But we don't get good customer service for white people either, in white businesses either, but we don't complain. So we have to learn how to start to support ourselves, and we have to teach each other how to do good customer service. We don't know. We've never owned businesses before. When we owned them back in the early 20s, there were massacres all over that destroyed those businesses, and they took the land after they destroyed the businesses. So it took us years to build up to get businesses again. So if you encounter a problem, don't take your dollar away, lend your advice, and then maybe help out. And then we have to get back to what I call the basics that we probably learned from our grandparents or our great-grandparents. And then you have to vote. We have to be vocal. We have to stop taking it. So some people march. Some people write letters. Right. We need to be visible on all levels, on the local level, but on all levels. They need to see us in the street. They need to see us in Springfield. They need to see us writing letters. They need to see us leaving voicemails everywhere, because we need to make it known that, what was the movie Network, that we're tired as,
That's right.
and we're not taking it anymore.
That's true. And see, I think that message, Rahm Emanuel, and your little flunkies that like to run and tell you something, dude, for you to have the audacity to say that the violence in our community is due to the lack of values in our families, the lack of morals in our families. Little dude, you lucky that Obama and them brought you here. And I'm gonna be careful because, I know. But dude, to insult us, that because you bring drugs into our communities, bring merchandise in baked trucks into our communities, set our people up, entrap our people, then you say because they don't have jobs and they are hungry and some of them addicted to the dope you put in there, that you let these other people, these immigrants bring in here, and you let them make millions in our community, and you allow that. And then you entrap us and you tell us we don't have morals, we don't have values, and that's why the violence is going on. We as Negroes need to remember that. And then we need to treat you the way our grandparents used to treat your kind. When we would come to the store and they would charge us forever. Yeah, it was a special kind of you, Rahm Emanuel. The kind that's over there in Israel. That's what you are. But I ain't gonna call you that because y'all so sensitive. You can do anything you wanna, but dude, it ain't that many of y'all in here this time. Black folks, Negroes, African Americans, and even colors will rise up from the diamonds in the ground and go to the diamonds in the sky and move your behind out of City Hall because of our values. Our lack of values is the reason there's violence. Didn't you just hear Dr. Reverend Wilson tell you that that's what we do in our families, and we need to do more of that? It ain't because we don't have values, little boy. It's because you don't care about us, and you're taking all our tax dollars and giving them to your kind. Hell, rescue me.
Well, Doc, in 1877, in America, black people, not even a whole generation, out of slavery, had decided that they were going to deal with the issues in the community. So in 1877, they promoted racial solidarity, racial economics, racial pride, to debuff the issue that slaves weren't anything. So out of that movement, in 1907, in Durham, North Carolina, became the first black financial district in America that birthed Black Wall Street, that birthed 25 black towns, with Chicago being one of them. 1881, Booker T. Washington opened up Tuskegee with 26 of the 32 building trades. The first 25 buildings were built by black teenagers whose fathers and grandfathers were tradesmen. 1838, there was a Philadelphia directory that 656 black women owned businesses during slavery. 1920, 676,000 black farms that supplied 14% of the world's food supply. Now, fast forward to 2018, there are less than 5,000 black farms, and we're begging Marianos and everybody to come in and say we live in a food desert. I mean, we've lost it along the way, all the way into even from the 50s. We went from 1877 strong all the way into the 50s, and then the focus changed. The focus went from financial responsibility to civil rights.
Right.
And so when they did that and started talking about we're going to hold America hostage for its constitution, we want to have the right to vote, we want to do this, we want to do that. Even in 1955, when the Montgomery boycott of the bus, it was S.B. Fuller and A. Philip Randolph said, let's buy the bus company.
That's right.
Let's buy it. And we 70% of the ridership. We shouldn't have to ask people, can we have a seat? We shouldn't have to ask people, can we sit in the front of the bus? But guess what? Roy Wilkins and the NAACP and the Urban League and SCLC, they decided that they were no longer going to focus on economics. And so they decided not to buy the bus company. And so for 386 days, the bus company went out of business. When's the best time to buy real estate? When it's worth nothing. Right. The best time to buy business? When it's worth nothing. But they could not see what S.B. Fuller, who in that year, 1955, had 38 businesses in 38 states. Mary Kay came out of his organization. And so we took on the term of victimhood, typified by the NAACP and the Urban League, and every year they come up with these scathing reports about how bad we are. This report that just came out, for the last 2 years in Illinois, black men are the highest unemployed in the country for the last 8 quarters. 16 economic indicators, we came in last place in every last one of them. 70% of the black men in Chicago make less than $12 an hour, and a livable wage is $23 an hour. You can't even get an apartment for $12 an hour. And so we've been hollering this victimhood when we came all the way from one generation out of slavery, did all we did, and then allowed those organizations to change the focus from economic responsibility to civil rights. And look what it's gotten us.
And go on, Doc.
I think other things were happening in the background too that we didn't pay attention to, but now we understand we perhaps should have paid attention to. America made the big change from the value of cash to the value of credit, and now we owe more than we have in the bank, and that's a problem for not only us, but for the majority of Americans, and that has served to make that top 1% richer. We've also have subtle music in the background going on. Before, our lyrics and songs that we listened to were fairly uplifting and filled with love and good neighbors and stuff like that. Now it's filled with all kinds of profanity words and shooting, drugs, and how much money I have and what kind of car I drive and suck my and all of this. And I think that adds to it also. All of it is just sort of piling up. And we have got to get to a point as a group of people where we not only say we've had enough, but demonstrate that we have enough. I teach financial wholeness and wealth, because if you don't have any money, you don't have any power. So I teach, start there. Start trying to vowing to be control over your finances now, and stop defining your wealth and what you wear or what someone else thinks about you, because you've got to get to the point to where we can own something again. That means we've got to get rid of that debt and be careful about what you listen to. The idle listening, the stuff we have running in the background, lowers your energy rate, lowers your energy, makes you too tired, ruins any idea or chance of you having a good thought. So you've got to protect that. You've got to protect that. And we do have to go back to the basics, back to what worked before.
I mean, what group of people would allow Sony Music to come into the west side of Chicago, come into Inglewood, come into Woodlawn, sign a rapper for $5 million, and Chief Keef, who basically has autistic, dropped out of 8th grade, and then put him in front of young people where he gets 40 million views, and we don't say anything about it. Right. I mean, why would we allow Sony to come in here and do that, and then the oppressed are playing right into the hands of the oppressor by this kind of music that the doctor talked about in terms of our young people? I mean, how you get 40 million views. Right. I mean, when you look at what's her name, Britney Spears. Mm-hmm. She was a wholesome little Mickey Mouse kid. Mm-hmm. And then after she returned 18, Channel 7, which is Disney, they took their little wholesome girl and made her a whore. Mm-hmm. So them 40 million little girls that was following her, guess what they did? They followed her right into whoredom. They just did Keke Palmer the same way. The little wholesome girl, little black girl. Now she's on record saying that she's not a heterosexual, she's a bisexual, she can be whatever, she's not gonna limit herself. Mm-hmm. But this little wholesome girl that started on Disney, now they're following her into whoredom. And so when you look at the Tribune yesterday, Doc, just came out with a report. 33,000 black kids in the last 20 years were put in the juvenile detention center. They said as young as 9, 10, 11 years old. And then they said they never expunged the records. So they said from that last 20 years, those 33,000 black kids that they say majority of black, 95% were black, that when they go before a judge, now the judge is looking at that juvenile record. And now that judge is saying, okay, now you 18 years old, now you did this. So they said between 18 and 21, the black population that went through all that stuff in juvenile detention centers right in Chicago, that 29 to 30% of them are never going to be anything because of the fact of the records. So how could the Tribune come up, do a FOIA and say 33,000 black children the last 20 years been in this system, and that this system had, I mean, as early as 9, 10, 11 years old. I mean, hundreds of them, 11 years old, 12 years old. And so they're saying from that the prison reform will never reform them. Right. And so when you look at that, and you look at, like you said, the baiting of the entrapment. If I put some food outside on 16th and Avers, and I put the food out there, and I know little kids are hungry, that's right, they're gonna go get the food.
Right.
And so why would you entrap people knowing they don't have anything, and then put that truck out there, and then the railroad say, Norfolk Southern say, well, we apologize for the entrapment. I mean, so at what point does black on black violence, when you have the psycho violence, you got the economic violence, you got the educational violence, you got all of this violent things that are going on. So it's not just what the criminologists would say, well, it's a lack of education, it's unemployment, it's underemployment, it's broken homes, it's drugs, it's all the things. It's all of that and the above. It's everything.
It's everything.
It's true. And see, all right, caller, come on with it, because we do want you in here on this because it is live. Yes, caller, speak on it.
Well, number one, I want to congratulate you all for coming on live. This is something that we have needed for the last few years. We need to hear messages like this. So I hope you put that telephone number out there and all of the viewers start calling in, because we do appreciate the fact that you all are giving us concrete issues and solutions. And I just want to say congratulations. Please keep up the good work, and we have missed you. We need live calling shows like what you all are doing.
Thank you. And I say thank you. And Dr. Reverend Wilson Coleman, see, she made me hyphenate it. Please just let me say Dr. Reverend. She said, no, call me right. So,
okay, you can call me just Reverend Dr.
Thank you very much, because I'm having a hard time. I'm having a senior moment trying to keep up. Now, let me just tell you something. For all of the producers, the public need to know, we are very thankful that we have gotten back to the live, because we know that in the community, we need this. It's therapeutic. Now, I know they don't think Negroes supposed to be able to know what's therapeutic. You understand? It take a little white boy to write and tell us what's therapeutic. But I'm telling y'all, I got the same PhD that thing got. And I'm telling you, for black people, talking is therapeutic. For black people, just fellowship. That's why the Dr. Reverend them have church filled up on Sunday, because it's the fellowship.
Fellowship.
And what we need, CAN TV, is fellowship. So we used to have a lot of shows, Harold, you know, on Tuesday night, Sunday, Saturday, we had a whole bunch of them. I doubt if we ever get to that because things have changed. But we're going to get back to a little bit better rhythm because we know what the caller said, and we are glad to be back here. And let me say something else that the doctor said. Subliminal seduction. It's like when you used to do the presentations about the
subliminal violence, right?
That's right. See, what happens is this. The NAACP, the Urban League, all of those people you call are the same. Y'all want to say the N word? I'm going to say the J word. It's the J word that controls the NAACP. It was the J word that created the NAACP. It is the J's that own these rap boards. It is the J word that uses their garbage and bring it in our community and bear witness that they are our friend. But it's the J word, as I speak right now, that's on the 5th floor in City Hall in Chicago, that say it is the lack of values that caused the violence. But it's you, the J word, the J word, I'm gonna just leave it there. Just like you say the N word, you figure that out. Since I'm a Negro and I'm still trying to figure out what the N word, and don't tell me it means the N-I-G, no. It means a new word that you have used. Now I want to move from that and come to something else that's very dangerous. Mr. McDonald, would you play that clip with that white woman back in the day in the 60s talking about the Negro? And then before we run out of time, I truly want to get to LeBron James because we're going to move around. Because I think that the Doc and Harold have broke down and gave information to help us understand we ain't here talking about just walking and begging and whining. Y'all can keep marching, but I can tell you right now. Some people told me the other day, they say, Maalik, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I said, well, hell, they just did something in Memphis. 800 black men, faith-based men, walked down the street in uniform, chatting like they was in the army. Men. I would need about 30. Y'all don't like it. They say, well, they're scared of you because you would look like you believe. I believe in the ancient religions of my ancestors. Yes, I do. And I do know that if we stop begging these people, we stop whining, and we came together as men and women, we could stop the killing in less than 3 weeks. But if we call for that, you're going to say, no, we got to ask Reverend Flake. You're going to say, no, we got to ask the J word. But if I could get 30 black men, me and Harold would take you in the secret. Doctor would be there too. And when we got through laying hands on you, not like y'all do it, but when we gave you that little spray bottle so when you walk down through the hood, you spray this prayer like the Catholics do. Why can't black folks speak on that water and sanctify our communities? Do you mean to tell me we can't call upon the Lord in our community and say, Lord, stop this killing? All you preachers sitting around here talking about you holier than thou, and you can't even stop a kid from killing another kid. You's a liar. You ain't nothing but a parasite. How can all of us not have the power of prayer to stop our babies from killing babies and their elders? That's because we're listening to those of you that made us think civil rights was more important than economical rights, that made us think that being an African-American, Afro-American, and a black were more important than realizing that the Negro ain't just made for the ex-slave. The Negro is a category of people, just like Caucasians is a category of people. See, y'all got faked out. But come on, Mr. McDonald, show me this. I don't want to try to tie it. Oh, I'm going to be preaching like this. Go for it.
History. This Midwestern housewife, like a lot of white Americans, does not think the Negro should present history's bill to her.
We hear so much about the slavery. 300 years ago, our grandfathers were slaves, or 200 years ago, our grandfathers were slaves. Well, for God's sakes, did we have anything to do with that? I had no part in it. I had no slaves. My folks didn't. My grandparents didn't. Are they blaming us for what happened 3 years ago? Let's forget the past. Think of the future. Build up the future. And why keep hemming and hawing over the same thing over and over and over again? And they say, you must give me land because my grandfather was a slave. Well, then I would say, for God's sakes, find the man who had your grandfather as a slave and then demand the land from him. Don't bother me because I had no part of it.
Across the country, we asked whites whether the main reason Negroes had not made more progress was because of racial discrimination or because Negroes have not worked hard enough. This lawyer expressed a view we heard most often.
We find there is the reluctance upon the part of too many Negroes, particularly among the young, to take the hard and remunerative jobs that must be necessary to earn a living. There is a feeling that for some reason somebody owes them a living.
Just about half of whites in our survey said the Negro has not made more progress because he has not worked hard enough. Only 15% blames discrimination. Some had no opinion.
I feel that they're basically lazy. When this summer, for example, opportunity was given to them to better themselves in getting as many jobs as possible in various fields of retail, wholesale, and they don't take the full advantage of accepting the responsibility of going out for these jobs. They feel that they're not good enough for them.
About half of whites agreed with this woman, that Negroes tend to be lazy more than whites. And this woman mentioned another charge against Negroes, that they have low morals.
Their sex problem, now let's face it now, how many white people have 10 illegitimate children? Very few, very few. This seems to be a trend with them. And I often wondered, what happens to these here men who follow these children? Are they busy making babies elsewhere, or are they busy in a civil rights march yelling for their civil rights?
And 4 out of 10 whites in our survey agreed that Negroes, more than whites, have low moral standards. However, half or more of whites disagree with some of the views you have just heard. For example, they reject the idea that Negroes are more likely than whites to have low morals. But for the moment, we're concentrating on...
Now, see, so Rahm Emanuel, now that's back in the 60s. So Rahm Emanuel, we know who those white folks are. But here you are, Rahm Emanuel, in 2018. He sounds just like them, don't he? He used the same words white folks used back then. But yet you the mayor of Chicago. See, dude, don't think we all sleep. You hadn't seen that, Rahm Emanuel, or maybe you had. Maybe you didn't think we saw it. You said the same thing that little old racist white woman just said. That's back in 1960-something. And here it is, just this week, here you are, big elitists, say the same ignorant thing. Negroes ain't got no value. And you want to be reelected? All right, okay, we'll see. But I pray that the diamonds in the sky reach down and touch the diamonds in the ground. And that the ancestors rise up and they all do like they used to do on the daily. And they walk the ground on election day and they vote you out. Yeah, I said that, and all your little lackeys that want to take issue with me, I ain't holding it back no more. Because I'm tired of y'all sitting here. Y'all just keep begging these white folk. They had a handful of y'all down there today, same old decrepit looking people coming together talking about you elected officials. You the alderman of a black ward, and you don't know what's happening in your ward? You're supposed to stop that crime. You the alderman, we elected you, and you looking in here. Then they had the audacity last week, 4 aldermen, I ain't gonna call their name, signed a resolution against Dr. Willie Wilson because he was giving his money away to help people pay their property taxes. Mm-hmm. These aldermen thought and think he should be charged with a class 4 felony when the Board of Elections said he did not violate any rules. And now Lisa Maalik is trying to get in on it and say, well, maybe woo, woo, woo. Like the man said, I'm tired of white folks telling me how to spend my money. I got millions of dollars, and I'm tired of y'all taking the property from black people. Like Brother David said earlier, you just come in and you take the property. We don't own no property. So this man trying to help us, but then you got these handkerchief head leaders that want him to be criminalized because he's doing something good. What would you say is a quick, simple thing. Now, Reverend Dr. Wilson Coleman stated the values, the woo-woo. What can be done? Oh, you
know, yeah, and before we go to that, we do have to clear up a misconception.
All right.
The African American female fertility rate is just about equal to the white female fertility rate. It's a teeny bit higher. So that 10 illegitimate children that black women are having is a myth in her own mind. Okay, and in her mind only. But she was allowed to speak that out and without any repercussions. So then everyone believes it because of the skin color and the media.
Right.
So they look at you like, oh, where are your other 9 kids?
Right.
You know. And the other thing is, I believe that we deserve all of our rights. Economic rights, civil rights, educational rights, every right we are supposed to have. And all too often, as a group of people, it seems like we're forced to choose.
Right.
And it's in that choosing we get ourselves in trouble. And I agree with you. I do believe that our ancestors are powerful. You know, that all of those hurricanes and stuff that are out there stirring up over the Middle Passage.
Yes.
So they're not just stirring up just because it's over the Middle Passage. So we can call on their strength. We can call on their power. We can literally focus our energy and our prayers in an area and stop the crime.
We can do that.
We can do that. That is possible.
It's true.
Okay, now.
You know,
It's true.
You know, Doc, the Chicago Reporter came out with a report a couple weeks ago that said that the traffic violations, traffic tickets, were aimed at people making $15,000 and less.
Yes.
North Lawndale, West Humboldt Park, Roseland, Inglewood, and Austin, where all these tickets were written.
Yes.
And so they asked the question. They said, well, 77% of them, Doc, didn't even know that their license was suspended.
See that?
They were pulled over by the police and said, your license is suspended. So then what happened next? Are you going to jail? What happened after that? We're going to tow your car. So now your car's in the pound. So now you can't get the car out.
$175 at $200 a day?
Right, $200 a day. Then they said the average fine, doctor, was over $3,000 for these people making less than $15,000 a year. And then they went up and they said, well, none of this was being done on the north side. None of this, and then, so they found out that the city billed $250 million last year in in parking tickets. Now, what they didn't tell you was 10,000 black folks had to file bankruptcy to even attempt to get on the payment plan. But the problem was they couldn't come up with the $1,000 down payment, 1/3 of it. And so all of these things are being practiced on the weak and the poor. And so those same 5 zip codes, West Humboldt Park, North Lawndale, Roseland, Inglewood, and Austin, are the same 5 zip codes that 73 shootings took place, the same 5 zip codes that 22,000 black men came home this summer to, the same 5 zip codes where all the mortgage fraud took place, where black people lost all kinds of equity in their homes, or if they didn't lose their home. The same 5 zip codes were now where the guy who founded Public Storage now owns 78,000 homes in black communities, where he turned around and bought them during the mortgage foreclosures and rented them back to you. The same 5 zip codes that they spent $2.5 billion locking people up in the article called $1 Million Blocks. So at what point and what time, and then the article ended and said, Chicago, trending with these parking tickets, made Ferguson look like child's play. Because Ferguson had a line item in their $26 million budget. $2.7 million was built in for traffic violations. And so you're taking the weak and the poor, and you're taxing them. And you're taxing 77% of these people paid $76 million in fines. So when they did the correlation, Dr. Coleman Wilson, did anybody on the north side, did this happen anywhere else? It happened in the same 5 zip codes.
And they did an article not too long ago on the stops that the policemen make to test for alcohol. And they made more stops in the black community than they did the white community. But they've proven in the white community, you have higher rates of people literally driving intoxicated
Without a doubt.
as opposed to the black community. But you concentrated the majority of the police force to stop African
One better
Americans.
than that, Rev. 683,000 DUIs in the white community, 110,000 in our community. 8.8 million arrests in America last year. 6.5 million were white people. But you couldn't tell. They led in every category, including murder. In every category of crime, white America led it.
And the FBI report for 16 said that approximately 70% of all the crime in America were
That's
created
the report
by,
I got it from.
was created by white Americans.
White Americans.
But the majority of the arrests, the jail time, and the fines are against black Americans.
That's right.
And see, that's the beauty of knowledge. See, Carla, you was right. We do need to give you information because we back. And we want you to have information that you might have not got. See, as they stated in that first clip, Rahm Emanuel run around hollering, this is a sanctuary city. And it is for anybody but the Negro. And Michael Jackson was right. They don't care about us, and that's okay, but we got to care about ourselves, and we got to do better. But then I was reading something today on Facebook probably, where they were saying that those immigrant kids, basically we all think they're from Mexico, but a lot of them from Haiti, a lot of them from black countries, that they had separated from their parents, has made and is making these J-word people and Trump-type people billions of dollars already. Billions of dollars are being made because now they have come over with a whole new category of social service, housing, taking care, giving sanctuary to the immigrant kids. But yet our born slave kids are killing each other in the street because they don't have a refuge. They don't have sanctuary because their mom and daddy has been targeted by y'all, politicians, coloreds, and others. Y'all allowed this to happen.
Something real quick.
Oh,
Doc.
go on, sir.
I had two incidents with two young black girls last week. One sister, they told her that if she didn't come report to this DCFS program, something happened with her children. And they told her if she didn't come, then they were going to take her children back. And so she had to be at work at 9, and she had to be in this program at 9:30. So she said, well, how can I come if I'm working? And how can I come if I can't feed my children? You're going to take my kids anyway. They told her what's more important, her job or her children. That was the choice they gave her.
That's right.
Another incident was a sister took a background check. They called from 35th in Michigan. They said, your background check is back. Come pick it up. When she got there, they arrested her. Said she had a violation in Kane County, and they came and got her and took her to Kane County. She had 3 children at home by themselves. But these are the kind of things that just maybe somebody at 35th from Michigan would have said, you know, maybe you should call Kane County before you come here.
Right.
I mean, these are the kind of things that continue to happen.
Yeah.
Where you're saying, well, if I don't go to work, I can't feed my children.
Right.
If I don't go to the program, Doc, then I'm going to lose my children.
Lose my children.
And so you're giving people absolutely no choice at all.
Right.
And then you just constantly just taxing them and just doing whatever you can to them. There was no reason for that officer down at 35th in Michigan to call that lady and say, your background report is back, come pick it up. Why didn't he just tell her, hey, you know, before you come down here, call Kane County? Soon as she got down there, on a Friday, they took her to jail.
That's right.
In Kane County. And so these are the kind of things that we can, then they say prison reform. Well, what's probation? They said if you took probation and parole officers out, you could save the state $250 million. And they say probation and parole officers have absolutely no value because guess what? 95% of the shooters are on parole and probation.
Ain't that something?
Who are doing the shooting. 95% of them are on parole and probation.
And you can't solve one crime.
17% clearance rate. They won't even give this year's numbers for clearance rate. They won't even give them up. Last year was 17%. In New York, it's 70%. In California, it's 70%. So 83% of the murderers are running around Chicago, going to be shooting tonight and shooting and killing people. 95% of them on parole and probation. And guess what? The guy who runs that lives way downstate Illinois, comes up here on a Monday, drives here, use Monday as a driver, use Friday as a travel day. He's here 3 days a week, and he's in charge of the parole and probation officers in Illinois.
Yeah, and see, that's how they do it. And callers, hopefully you look at the show. You watched the show. You didn't get in, but we will be doing this again. I think we got about 3 minutes left. But before we leave, I got to say this. Would you show that piece about LeBron James and the trouble he's in? Maybe we can do that in 2 minutes. LeBron James said something that I'm sure he meant no harm. You know, he's been catching a lot of slack from Trump and other people. But now it seems like some white folks, or maybe some Negro women, got sort of upset because he said that colored women are some of the most beautiful and the best people in the world. Actually, ain't nothing wrong with that. But what I want to say is this. Just like they have subliminally programmed us to accept this foolishness they call rap and hip-hop, which ain't nothing but noise and poison, new generations have to be careful, Dr. Rep.
Yes,
Harold.
yes.
Our ancestors was called colored. When I was a boy, the sign didn't say black or African American. It said no coloreds allowed. When I got ready to go to the bathroom, it was no coloreds. When I got ready to enter a store, no coloreds. So now, who is reprogramming us now that we are saying people of color? You silly Negro, you ain't no people of color. What about them other dark-skinned people over here? Now you done took away your identity, and now you want to merge into with the dark-skinned Indians, the dark-skinned Mexicans, the dark-skinned everybody. Negroes, if you don't stop calling yourselves people of color, look what happened to poor LeBron James. He meant no harm. He said colored women, because he was scared to say Negro women. He was scared to say black women. He was scared to say African-American women, and Afro women went out a long time ago. Y'all need to just start saying Negro, period, because they got a trap. But don't let them get you back to calling yourself colored, because you are not colored. There is no black race. There is no colored race. You are a daggone Negro, fool. Don't let those suckers that called you black and took the green and turned yellow make you become a colored again. You running around here, I'm black. They got paid.
Exactly.
I'm African American. That was Obama, got elected. Here he is, ain't got, the only Negro he liked is his wife. But you all loved him, but he was really an African American, a Kenyan.
Real.
Ain't had nothing to do with you. Stupid, sorry, colored. Stop calling yourself colored. Because you see what they did to LeBron James? They jacked him, and all he did is say colored because he was scared to say Negro. Poor thing. Wake up. Stand up. Stop your children from doing things they ain't got no business, even though they 28 years old. What you say, Doc? Can't you tell your 28-year-old boy, go sit down, boy?
I can tell my
I know
40,
you can tell him.
I can tell my 40-year-old son
I know
to
you
sit
can.
down. Yes.
And I know Harold can tell
Right.
his what to do.
And yeah, you have to parent all the time.
That's right.
They're not your friends, they're your children. And as my mama used to say, she was always going to be my mama, and I was always going to be the child.
That's right.
Right. And that is the case. You've got to stop them from doing what you know is wrong. And then you got to watch your behavior, too, around
That's
your
right.
own children.
It's true.
We can't do that stuff, too. Don't be hanging out in the nightclub all loose and free.
Right.
And then expect your kids not to do the same
No,
thing.
hanging out with their grandchildren.
With their grandchildren.
I
You
mean,
gotta
at the
stop that.
nightclubs.
Right, you got to stop that.
It's true. Yeah. Well, y'all, I want y'all to just reflect a little bit on them diamonds in the sky. I know it's a shadow, you can't see it. You think they're all in the ground. And yeah, they are in the ground, but when they put them in the ground, you say they're going well in heaven. So when you're talking about the diamonds, I'm talking about your ancestors. When I look at this little boy that sings, Let me see this boy. I look at this. Look at it. He look like a little church boy, don't he?
Yep, he do.
He do.
He do.